Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I'm going to look at the week starting on Monday, December the 25th, 2023, which goes through until Sunday, December the 31st, 2023. So in other words, the week from Christmas Day through to Christmas Eve 2024. So to give you an idea about the structure of this video, I'm going to begin by looking at what I see as the main astrological events for the week are. For example, there's a full moon on Wednesday, and on Thursday there's a conjunction between Mercury and Mars, and at the end of the week Jupiter goes stationary direct. So I'll be looking at these events which I regard as being important. Having done that, I'm going to consider how the astrology of this week might impact certain famous people. So I have a few famous people to look at. For example, Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister. I think events this week might have an impact on her. So I'll be looking at that. I've got a few others, a few other people to look at. Having done that, I'm going to switch to the I Ching, and I'm going to do an I Ching reading, which is going to have three broad sections: money, career, and relationships. And I should emphasize with the I Ching reading, it is very subjective. And you do have a choice. When we come to the I Ching reading, if you don't want to watch it, if you don't want to be part of that reading, then you can just end the video and watch something else. And in that case, what I say will have no impact on you. I mean, it's not that what I'm saying has some magical influence on you. It's just the synchronicity of the two events of you watching me talk about the I Ching and me talking about the I Ching, the coins that I've thrown. They sort of come together. So it's and then it's also about your decision to listen to what I'm saying. So I suppose you might argue that that's kind of preordained. I don't know. But the bottom line is, if you don't listen to my I Ching forecast, it's not part of you, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do in this video. So I'm going to start off by looking at the week ahead. So top right, that is Annalena Baerbock. God, have I got that right? Annalena Baerbock, sorry. And I will be talking about her shortly. So, what is going on this week? So, on Christmas Day, there is a trine aspect between Venus and Neptune. You can see this. This is a chart for the beginning of the week. I've set it for midnight New York on December the 25th. So there is Venus, there is Neptune. You can see that they're in trine aspect, and you can also see that Venus is in Scorpio, a water sign. Obviously, Neptune is in Pisces, which is also a water sign. So, that Venus trine Neptune on Christmas Day, it's nice. Venus Neptune is quite sort of easygoing. I suppose Neptune is the planet of drugs and alcohol, so watch how you go. I don't know what it's like in America, but I know that in the UK that Christmas Day is the day for getting drunk. Everyone gets drunk, doesn't matter who they are. Well, when I was in the UK, people would get thrown out of church for being drunk because the pub was right next to the church. So, yeah, watch how you go with the alcohol. If you are going to church, do it sober. Of course, in America, people are more abstemious, or suppose they are, at least in theory they are. Yeah, watch how you go with the alcohol. Of course, I'm in Washington State, where cannabis is sort of legal. You can go to marijuana shops if you're 21 or over. So I suppose if you're in one of those states, yeah, be careful on Venus trine Neptune. It's very easy to get inebriated. Um, so watch for that. But I suppose Christmas Day is supposedly a day when one celebrates the birth of Christ. So if one goes to church on Christmas Day, it may be more meaningful than usual. Um, because Venus is trine Neptune. Venus is about how we relate to the world around us, maybe even to the entities around us, and Neptune allows us to sort of dissolve into something higher than ourselves. And of course, that could be the family. I mean, it is supposed to be a time for families, isn't it, Christmas? So I don't know. I think that Venus trine Neptune is not much of a problem. It might even be quite fortunate, um, provided we don't go over the top, over imbibe, etc. Um, though I suppose we must remember that Venus is in Scorpio. Venus does not work very well in Scorpio. So in terms of close, intimate relationships, if you're spending Christmas Day with one other person and there's a close, almost obsessive link between you and that other person, maybe there could be a few problems. Boundaries could get usurped, and that in the end might have unfortunate consequences. As we move into Tuesday, Boxing Day, the Sun is making a sesquiquadrate to Uranus. So there's the Sun in Capricorn, and there's Uranus in Taurus. So at around 4:33 Capricorn, the Sun is 135 degrees from Uranus. So using the cake analogy, that's 3/8 of the cake. So you got your cake, cut it into 8 equal slices. So that 135-degree aspect is 3 of those slices. So the Sun sesquiquadrate Uranus is a rather different energy from Venus trine Neptune. The Sun is about oneself. Uranus is about expressing one's individuality. It can also be about revolutions and upsetting things. And it may be that certain people have strong opinions about themselves. They're very much into themselves. So much so that they could cause problems. So, we might come across people who are really throwing their ego around, with negative consequences. And if we start to be very focused on our ego, that can cause problems because other people might not appreciate it, and that could cause arguments, disruption, and so on. So be a bit careful on Tuesday with that Sun sesquiquadrate. Uranus. Probably a good idea. Don't do anything dangerous because Uranus is a planet of accidents, and especially if on Tuesday you find yourself doing something which is very individual. Say, I'm going to do this. I know everyone tells me not to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to, I don't know, play around with a chainsaw, or I'm going to go, I don't know, um, driving around, getting rid of frustration, driving too fast. I'm going to do it anyway. If you take that kind of attitude, you're really asking for trouble with Sun sesquiquadrate Uranus. So moving onto Wednesday, and there is a full moon. So in fact, this is what the full moon looks like. I have to get this program fixed because the wheel keeps jumping up and down. And I can't fix it. But don't worry, I'll sort it out in the next week. But anyway, this is a full moon. You can see that this full moon is at 4:58 Cancer. So you can see the moon at 4:58 Cancer is opposition the sun at 4:58 Capricorn. So this full moon, it's about the difference between the sun in Capricorn, which is quite materialistic, quite down to earth, and moon in Cancer, which is quite emotional. I mean, it's a very well placed moon in Cancer. Moon rules the sign Cancer, so in one sense that is good. But there is this tension between, on one hand, our desire to be sort of nurturing and to think not just of ourselves but other people, and on the other hand, Capricorn, our material needs, our material obligations. Obligations perhaps to ourselves. And so when you've got a full moon, you can get sort of swings of behavior. One moment everyone's very happy and loving and whatever, and suddenly next moment, no, we've got to do it. We've got to get back to reality. So that can be one aspect of this full moon. And, it's coming just after Christmas. And so, there's been this sort of bit of fantasy over Christmas, particularly with Venus trine Neptune. And then suddenly, full moon, we start to see reality. Full moons are about the truth. We can see the truth in all its glory. And we can see the material truth. So, for example, if we've been spending too much over Christmas, we've allowed the credit card bill to just get out of hand, it might suddenly hit us with this full moon. But we can also see the truth about other people, everything. If there has been a truth that has been denied, it will suddenly come out, I think, with this full moon. And so that might be how this full moon manifests. Now, there is a thing about this full moon. Okay, I just said that on Tuesday, there was Sun sesquiquadrate Uranus. So there's a Sun sesquiquadrate Uranus. Then the full moon comes along. So the full moon, the moon makes the opposition of the sun. So the moon is semi-square Uranus and the sun is sesquiquadrate Uranus. So that means that this full moon starts to have the nature of Uranus. It's touched by Uranus. So, on the surface, it looks quite nice, the moon in Cancer, but it may actually be quite a difficult full moon because it brings instability in its wake. It's like there's been a Christmas truce. I don't know, a few days ago I talked about the horoscope for the winter solstice, and I think it was a really nice chart. And Maybe things were fine over Christmas, but with the full moon, no, the truce is over. If there's been anything swept under the carpet, it's coming back out of the carpet. The monster and its tentacles are back, emerging from under the carpet and potentially causing chaos. So if something has not been properly sorted out over Christmas, it will come back into focus, and we do have to deal with it. Now, Uranus it's a sort of a transpersonal planet. It's often not really about the individual. It can be about the collective. So this might be saying more about what is going on in society. So we shouldn't necessarily take this full moon personally. Now, I don't want to say too much about the full moon right now, except to say that I want to look at it, how it impacts us on Wednesday. We can look at how the full moon has a longer term impact, but in a couple of days' time, maybe my next video, I might tag it on. I'm planning on doing a video for Christmas Day, for Monday. So I will talk about the full moon in greater detail. Now, at the same time as the full moon, Mercury makes a square to Neptune. So there's Mercury and there is Neptune. So on Wednesday, Mercury square Neptune. Then on Thursday, Mars squares Neptune. And also on Thursday, Mercury conjuncts Mars. So we've got three aspects there here. Mercury square Neptune, Mercury conjunct Mars, Mars square Neptune. So they all happen in the middle of a week. And I think we should really try to see we should try to see those three aspects really as one and the same. So in a way, we can analyze what each of those aspects means, but in terms of how it affects us, how it affects the world, we have to kind of see the three planets as coming together. I mean, Mercury square Neptune can be about the principle of deception. People saying things which they don't mean. People can be lying. We can fool ourselves. Mars square Neptune. Mars-Neptune contacts I often like to associate with sleaze. I've already talked about drugs and alcohol, but with Venus trine Neptune, but in a quite sort of gentle way. But Mars square Neptune is being attracted to things which are perhaps a bit dubious, the underbelly of society, the things which dark, sinister, and exciting. So that might be Mars square Neptune. And then we've got Mercury conjunct Mars. So if we look at Mercury conjunct Mars in isolation, that's about mental agitation, verbal agitation, and it's in Sagittarius. People can make a lot of noise with Mercury conjunct Mars. People can be very argumentative. They can use words to attack. And, this happens just after the full moon, because remember, we've got full moon, which is semi-square sesquiquadrate Uranus, and then you've got Mercury conjunct Mars. So it's verbally aggressive, and, people are really going to want to stand up for their rights. But then you put all of this together, Mercury square Neptune, Mercury conjunct Mars, Mars square Neptune. People could be quite crazy there because they don't understand what's going on. A lot of people, they get violent, they get aggressive because they misunderstand the situation. And there's a lot of that. Something quite normal gets blown up out of proportion because people just don't understand it. And there's mixed messages, and people, in the worst case scenario, people get hurt. Um, or people misinterpret things, and that's a real problem. So what can we do about that? Um, well, if we think we're the kind of person that gets angry, then about small things, then we need to make a greater effort to consider whether what we're seeing is as bad as it sounds. So, for example, someone might say something and you might immediately jump to the wrong conclusion, immediately be offended by it. And I don't think that's a good idea. Likewise, we might meet people who are very touchy, who misconstrue what we do. So if we're dealing with people who have a history of being violent and aggressive and verbally, physically, whatever, just be really careful what we say. Um, don't make eye contact with strange people on the subway or the underground or whatever. That kind of thing, because there's plenty of scope for misunderstanding. Now, this aspect involving Mercury, Neptune, and Mars, it may say something about what's going on in the world. It is aggressive. People may, countries, other actors may jump to conclusions about what one group is doing against to another group, and they could resort to violence, and it's unnecessary violence. I don't know. Neptune, shouldn't forget that Neptune is a natural planet of oil. I don't know what's going to be happening in the I don't know, Persian Gulf. Probably nothing, but it's maybe something to look at. So yeah, we do need to be careful about that. Okay, so that's the negative stuff out of the way. Friday, Venus goes into Sagittarius. You can see that the start of a week, Christmas Day, so that would be Friday the 29th, Venus goes into Sagittarius. So you can see that Venus starts the week at 26 Scorpio in a pretty sort of miserable shape, late Scorpio. Then by Friday it moves into Sagittarius. Now, this is really good news, Venus going into Sagittarius, for two reasons. Firstly, Venus is leaving Scorpio. That in itself is grounds for celebration. Venus doesn't work well in Scorpio. Venus is in its detriment in Scorpio. So, we know it doesn't help with relationships. Yes, Venus in Scorpio is emotional, but it can be brooding, over emotional, doesn't really express its feelings, even though those feelings are strong, and it can just be difficult. Then Venus goes into Sagittarius. It's opened up suddenly. Venus in Sagittarius is a nice optimistic sign. Go out, meet new people. We can be less self-conscious. So that's great. Of course, don't want to go completely over the top, but maybe it's a time to go to parties, socializing, and that kind of thing. So that's one reason why Venus in Sagittarius is good. But the moment Venus goes into Sagittarius, it's in the sign ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is in Taurus, a sign ruled by Venus. So the moment that happens, Venus and Jupiter are in mutual reception. Venus immediately strengthens, and so does Jupiter. So the two benefics, Jupiter the greater benefic and Venus the lesser benefic, are immediately strengthened. And that's kind of good for the world. it's fortunate. Um, However bad things seem, I think people are going to be more optimistic, and it may feel that things are starting to look up. I said this when I looked at the solstice chart. When I looked at the chart for the when the sun moved into Capricorn, it didn't seem to be a bad chart, and that might reflect on the next 3 months. Um, I need to give this more thought, but part of me is thinking that maybe the beginning of 2024 is not going to be too bad. Certainly with Venus Jupiter in mutual reception. I should also say that on Sunday, Jupiter goes stationary direct. So Jupiter's been going backwards for a long time, for quite a few months. And then it comes to a standstill. Then it starts going forward. So a planet that is going forward, that is going stationary, that is going direct in Western astrology, it gains strength from that. So Jupiter is strengthened not just by its mutual reception with Venus, but by the fact that it's going forward, that it's going direct. So I think the week, right at the end of a week, in a general sense, things do seem to get a lot better. Okay, that full moon is not a one-day wonder. And that full moon could be dangerous because it's semi-square sesquiquadrate Uranus. But that's not the only thing going on, and I do think that Venus Jupiter mutual reception is pretty good. Okay, so that's the broad picture. Now, what I want to do now is I just want to look. I want to look at a few famous people and consider how this week's planetary situation might affect them. Okay, so there is a full moon, as I said, full moon at 4:58 Cancer. So Elon Musk, he was born on June the 28th, 1971. And so you can see that his sun is at 5:53 Cancer. And so this full moon is right on his Cancer sun. So I think Elon Musk might have a few realizations. Perhaps he's kind of involved with something, and he might realize that actually it's not going to work. He might have a change of mind, particularly as his sun is square Uranus. It might be a bit of a shock for him. Elon Musk, he might have a change of mind about something. Now, one of the reasons I think that Elon Musk is so successful in the United States is because his sun at 5:53 Cancer is conjunct the United States' Jupiter at 5:56 Cancer. So this full moon actually has an impact on the United States' Jupiter. United States has got Jupiter in the 7th house. I've often associated this Jupiter in Cancer in the United States because Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter is, it's quite moralistic. It's all about. I think I relate it to the United States' obsession with regime change. They have been obsessed with regime change, particularly since the Second World War. If they don't like a government, they feel, oh, this is a way to run a government. If someone is running a type of government they don't like, then they want to change it. However, whatever they do. Now, the latest thing is to use NGOs, support these NGOs all over the world to undermine governments and whatever. So I think that's that Jupiter in the seventh house. It's quite moralistic, and perhaps with this full moon on United States' Jupiter, they perhaps will see the consequences of their attempts to overthrow it for regime change. It will be seen perhaps by certain people in the administration to, we'll see how, it's not working so well, is it? But yeah, I suppose that's a bit vague, and maybe we won't see much going on there. Now, what about Annalena Baerbock? I mean, that's her picture, top right. I mean, she is a complete puzzle because she's German foreign minister, and her party is supposed to be the Greens. I mean, the Greens, they're supposed to be into stuff like disarmament, world peace, that kind of stuff. Yet, as a Green, she is a complete neocon, isn't she? I mean, she is a strong advocate of supporting the war in the proxy war in Ukraine. She thinks it's great that Germany has been sending Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. I mean, is that what a traditional Green politician should be doing, sending Leopard tanks to Ukraine? I mean, a lot of these tanks have all been destroyed by now, but still, it's a thought that counts. And so, yeah, and then she, I think in the beginning of October, she was talking about the EU, and she gave this really disturbing speech. She said, talking about the EU, and it's, she said something like how the EU, the European Union, will range from Lisbon to Luhansk. Luhansk is currently it's in the Donbass. It's controlled by Russia. So this incredible vision of this huge Europe, and I'm thinking, well, where have I heard that before? One's reminded of that video, that late 1942 video. I think it was done around this time at Christmas, where sort of German radio, of course it was under Nazi Germany, they were calling up all these places in Norway, sort of Achtung, Stalingrad, Achtung, Stalingrad, all these places, outposts of Nazi-controlled Europe all over the place. And then I was kind of reminded of that. I mean, from Lisbon to Luhansk, it's like, all these sort of German fantasies under sort of Nazi Germany. You think of the Autobahn between Berlin and Odessa and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is a Green politician. I just find that amazing. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's pretty bad. I don't know what, I don't understand this woman. Anyway, looking at her horoscope, she's a Sagittarius. So I suppose a Sagittarian is going to say something like that, from Lisbon to Luhansk, and is going to just perhaps be excited by all these Leopard tanks. Maybe I suppose that's a Sagittarian thing, to be excited about sending Leopard 2 tanks all over the place. So she's got Sun Neptune conjunction in Sagittarius. I think this is a woman who is seriously confused, or I suppose Sun is a male planet, so perhaps it's men confusing her, telling her things. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she's been controlled or not by anyone. I don't know. So this Mercury-Mars conjunction is quite close to her Sun, and she's going to have. So if there's what you're going to have is you're going to have. Let me just show you what I mean. So let's put there we go. So you see, there's her Sun. There's her Sun Neptune conjunction. So at the beginning of a week, Mercury was at 27 Sagittarius. There's Mars at 22 Sagittarius. So Mars is moving onto her Sun-Neptune conjunction at the beginning of the week. Mercury, because it's retrograde, is also moving onto her Sun-Neptune conjunction. And meanwhile, Neptune is square her Sun-Neptune conjunction all the time. So there's plenty of scope for Annalena Baerbock to reach some really wrong conclusions. I hope she's somewhere where she can't cause any trouble. Hopefully she just spends the next week at home with her family, not getting involved in politics. Just she needs to stay away from anything to do with power or responsibility this week, because I think that could be very difficult. But yes, I think she is a disaster waiting to happen. Well, I think probably arguably the disaster has already happened. I mean, she's seems to be enjoying destroying the German economy. Now they've got no gas from Russia. Look what's happening. I think people are talking about Germany being deindustrialized, but I suppose that's what the Greens wanted anyway, isn't it? So that's Annalena Baerbock's chart. So what about someone else? Imran Khan. So Imran Khan, as I said, I don't know a great deal about Pakistani politics. Imran Khan was Prime Minister of Pakistan. He was moved. The United States wasn't too happy about his attempts to be neutral after the war started in 2022. I think there was a feeling in the United States that under Imran Khan, Pakistan was getting too close to Russia, and it seems that America was able to engineer some sort of I don't know if coup's the right word, but they were able to engineer Imran Khan's removal. But he was Prime Minister recently, and I assume he has ambitions to be Prime Minister again. And I did talk about how Neptune might be affecting him, because his Mars is at 25 Sagittarius, so he has got Neptune square his Mars on and off at the moment. If you've got Neptune square your Mars, got to be careful. Particularly if you're someone like Imran Khan. Prime ministers in Pakistan, bad things often happen to them. Benazir Bhutto was assassinated. Her father was hanged. I mean, it's tough being a senior politician in Pakistan. And so with that Neptune square Mars, he does have to be very careful in general. But with Mercury and Mars moving onto his Mars, transiting Mercury and Mars moving onto his Mars at a time when Neptune is square his Mars, Imran Khan has to be especially careful. And he probably should avoid pulling off any stunts. He just needs to keep a low profile and make sure he's properly protected. So that's Imran Khan. We might say the same thing about the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He's someone who the United States and many people in the European Union would like to get rid of. He's the Hungarian Prime Minister who is very skeptical about the war in Ukraine. And you can see that he has got his moon at 24 Virgo. So for Viktor Orban at the moment, he's got Neptune opposition his moon. And now there's a Mercury-Mars conjunction in Sagittarius, which is square his moon. So you could say that what the Mercury-Mars conjunction is doing is acting as a trigger. It's triggering whatever the potential of that Neptune opposition Mars. So he has to be careful with that moon. I talked about this before Neptune oppositioned his moon. I think there's perhaps a danger that his popular support. He has to be careful about his popular support, and he has to be careful about his own impulses and behavior and whatever. So he needs to be careful this week. I would have said. So anything else? Oh, Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service. Again, I've talked about Mossad in reference to Neptune. Mossad has its Mars at 24 Virgo. So it's had Neptune. So Mossad has had Neptune opposition its Mars for some time. Um, I think you could say that I would guess that after the October the 7th attack by Hamas, um, I would assume that Mossad's reputation has really taken a dive. For Mossad, Mars it is an aggressive organization. That's what it does. It's well known for being aggressive, for organizing various sort of overseas jaunts, assassinations, that kind of stuff. Mars is important. So when that Neptune opposition its Mars it's a point of weakness, and so yeah, I mean, we've got that all the time, but now we've got Mercury conjunct Mars is square Mossad's Mars. I don't know how that's impacting Mossad, whether it's doing anything. By the way, this is Mossad's time for when it was founded on December the 13th, 1949. I don't have a time for it. So if they're planning any stunts, they have to be very careful, because with Neptune involved, there's a danger that things could go wrong, and they do sometimes go wrong. Mossad doesn't pull it off successfully all the time. They do have to be careful. One other chart, if you're into UK politics, Dominic Cummings, do you remember him? Dominic Cummings was the sort of genius behind Brexit. I mean, the Brexit vote for 2016 was a lot of his ideas and his planning, and which helped bring about the supporters of Brexit there. Brought Brexit winning the 2016 referendum. He was, I think, an advisor to Boris Johnson, but I think there was a falling out over COVID, and I don't know. I don't think we've heard much about Dominic Cummings, but I'm sure he has thoughts about what's going on in the UK. And there is Dominic. I just noticed that Dominic Cummings has a Mercury-Venus conjunction, and Neptune has been square his Mercury-Venus conjunction, and I don't know, maybe with this Mercury-Mars conjunction coming up on his Mercury-Venus conjunction, I don't know, maybe this is a time that Dominic Cummings feels he has to make his presence felt. Maybe he has to talk about his opinions about what's going on in the UK, and make some kind of maybe some kind of action on his behalf might be a good idea. Okay, so those are a few famous people, personalities that may be impacted by this week's events. All things being equal, probably, probably nothing will happen. That's the way with astrology. You often need to see, why would you expect something to happen on a slow, the week after Christmas? But anyway, I thought it would be a good idea to look at some famous people and consider how this Mercury-Neptune-Mars conjunction, or not conjunction, you've got the Mercury-Mars conjunction square Neptune, how it might affect them. Although, of course, in the case of Elon Musk, I was looking at how the full moon would impact him. Okay, so that's the astrology, and what I want to do now is turn to the I Ching. So with the I Ching, as I said at the beginning of this video, there is a voluntary nature to this. If you don't want me to do an I Ching forecast for you, then you don't have to have it. You can stop the video. You don't have to watch anymore. I won't be offended. So what I did was I asked the question, what is the week starting on Monday, December the 25th, going to be like for those watching this video? And so I threw the coins 6 times, and so what I'll be doing, just to remind you, is I will be doing a general interpretation. Then I will be looking at money, then career and business, and finally I'll be looking at relationships. So the first hexagram I got was 33, retreat. It's pretty much as it sounds, retreat. It's a time where we don't really want to be engaged too strongly with the world. It's not a time for going out into the world, because we're unlikely to accomplish much, and basically we're not really in a strong enough position to do anything. There's no dishonor in retreating. If we feel we haven't got the strength, we haven't got the resources, we haven't got the energy, it's okay. And it also might be a time when the environment just might not be good enough. The people around us might not be good enough. We're dealing with perhaps inferior elements when there are inferior elements. And I'm sorry to use that word, inferior elements. I'm using that in the way that the I Ching likes to use that kind of terminology. People who we feel might be below us in the context of the question. So that is something to consider. Another way of looking at 33 suggested by Greg Winkup. I really like Greg Winkup's book on the I Ching, which I think was published in the 80s. He associates this this hexagram with a piglet. On the surface, a completely different image. And he talks about the evolution of a piglet. And what he's really saying is you've got a small pig. Small pig is quite vulnerable. It's not a good idea for the small pig to go out into the world. The small pig needs to gain strength. And the best way of gaining strength is to just stay in one place. And so perhaps we need to think about that as well. We need to... we're not strong enough. We need to fatten ourselves up. And I don't mean fatten ourselves up for the slaughter. No, I don't mean that. I mean fatten ourselves up so that we can be, metaphorically, so that we can be stronger, so that we can deal with the challenges coming our way, perhaps as we move into the new year. It's not a problem. And I mean, I think one of the lines that moves, there are 3 lines that move, the second, third, fourth line move. So this fourth line moves, that is indicating that, seems to be talking about a social situation where we need to retreat, and we will not suffer from retreating. The only people that are going to suffer are the people that we are retreating from. So in a social situation, we just may in the end find that there are just people we just can't deal with them. They're no good for us. Should be doing something else, and it won't hurt us. It'll hurt them. Anyway, 33, it does move, and it moves to a hexagram number 59. Hexagram 59, it can be about rain. You can see the bottom 3 lines are about water, top 3 lines are about wind. So it's sort of a wind on going over the surface of the sea, blowing things away, and can be connected with flooding. And it's really about washing everything away. So we've just had this hexagram retreat, And so we move to dispersion, and it's like washing all the garbage away, all the stuff that's holding us back. It just can be thrown away. We don't need it anymore. Our life needs to be power washed. It just needs to all go, and we can start the new year again. So we shouldn't be worried about letting go of things. We shouldn't be worried about retreating from people. We shouldn't be worried about getting people out of our lives. It's fine. So that's dispersion. And there is also this idea that with dispersion, that there's, you have this sort of raging storm, and we get confused and we get blown left, right, and centre. But when the storm is over, we might suddenly find we're actually in a better position. So that is a possibility with dispersion. Okay, so that's a general reading. So I now want to consider this I Ching from the perspective. This I Ching reading, I want to focus on money. So with money, and if you've got retreat, the suggestion is that what we need to do this week is, as far as possible, we need to get out of financial commitments. So if you've got a financial commitment, or if you've promised someone something financially, but you're not comfortable with it. I mean, obviously there are some financial commitments we can't get out of. I mean, you've got to, I don't know, pay your mortgage, or if there are certain things, you pay monthly payments for your internet or whatever. I understand that. I mean, so I'm not saying those kind of commitments. I'm talking about the commitments perhaps where we've made informal promises, or, perhaps we've, we've agreed to sign up for some, we promised to sign up for some scheme, some maybe dodgy investment scheme, or I don't know, whatever. Something, things where we've made agreements, or we've got plans to spend money this week or commit to money, and we should retreat. We don't need to be involved with it. And this is particularly if we're involved with other people, and sort of other people are in the business of spending money. We shouldn't feel restricted. We shouldn't feel that we've made a verbal promise that we need to stick to it. No, we don't. And so by retreating from things, we can save ourselves some money, and that should be our aim. We want to keep things simple, and we don't have to be involved. And also, if we go back to the piglet analogy, the piglet is, maybe we want to build up our financial resources for next year. So what we don't want to do is spend loads of money now, even, whatever it is, for example, going to restaurants, whatever. We don't need to spend them. We want to be as strong as possible financially. And that's a good reason to really avoid spending money. Then this retreat moves to dispersion. I think dispersion is a chaotic time. And I think with money, we have to be pretty focused on what's going on, because dispersion, it is about rain, it's about wind, it's about things going all over the place. And so there is a danger that sort of money and our concept of where the spending is going does go all over the place. And so I think we need to be very disciplined here. We need to make sure we bring everything down to earth. I don't think we want to be, sort of thrown around left, right, and centre by a storm and then just hope for the best. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that if there is dispersion, it's just, if we want, in a positive sense, we need to just clear away as many sources of unnecessary expenditure as possible. Just clear it all away because we don't need it. I know, so I think that's something we should be doing. Okay, so now let's move to career and business. Okay, 33 retreat. This is not a time, certainly not a time for big moves in career. It's not a time for business ventures. It's a time to really not be too involved. And of course, many of us, I suppose, if it's just after Christmas, it may just be literally saying we're not working, and that may be as simple as that. It may just be stating the obvious. But if we are if we are working or involved in business dealings or whatever, I think we do have to be careful because some of the people we're working with are just really not up to it. They're not going to do us any good, and it's probably not a time to be making decisions about business or career. It's not a time to be making changes. It's just a time for sort of perhaps focusing on what we've got, and certainly not for taking risks. And yeah, if you're going into work this week, just keep a low profile and perhaps take the view that a lot of the people you're working with are just really maybe not up to it, not at least not at the moment. And you don't really have anything to do with them. And certainly if you're running a business, you need to certainly take that view. There are some people out there who are not really helping you out. And certainly it's not, if someone's pressuring you to, I don't know, expand or something like that, or to get involved in a new venture, as I said, that's not a good idea. And 33, retreat. It switches to dispersion, so that's that's preparing for 2024. That's just looking at all your ideas in terms of business and career, and just considering that a lot of them might be garbage, and clearing away people who are just not helping. If you're working with other people, okay, if you trust them, if they've worked well in the past, fine. But if it's all a bit tenuous and you've had doubts about someone's reliability, then yeah, it's okay to just clear the decks and move on. That's fine. Finally, I want to look at relationships. I think you can kind of guess what kind of thing I'm going to be saying about relationships. If you have got a hexagram 33 retreat in terms of relationships, this is not a time to be getting heavily involved with another person on a sort of a one-to-one level, because retreat is about backing off. It's about falling on your own resources. It's not about joining with someone else, because that's not the way this works. So if you're already in a relationship, whatever the relationship is, it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a friendship, could be a business partnership, whatever. If you're already in a relationship, then try to have, I think, as little to do with the other person as possible. Even if it's a long-term relationship that's been lasting for decades, you don't have to be really close all week long. A bit of distance, I think, would be a very good idea. And I think there may be certain aspects of a relationship which possibly need to change, um, whether it's your bad habits or their bad habits or joint bad habits or whatever. Dispersion. That's clearing them away, starting again. I think that is a good approach. If you're looking for a new relationship, then it's probably not a good idea. Um, New relationship, just starting, whatever it is, I think you might perhaps see that it's not, if you really think about it reasonably, realistically, um, it's not going to work, at least in the short term. And it's best to back off. That's retreat. Um, um, and maybe morph and back off, remembering you've got this retreat moves to dispersion, so it may be time to just move on. Particularly if it's a new relationship with no major commitments. Consider it. Yeah, it may not be the right thing, and I think I Ching is suggesting that maybe you do need to you need to sort of as I said, I like to use that phrase, clear the decks, and new year, new opportunities. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for this week. Overall, looking at this week, I think looking at the astrology and the I Ching together, I think that the sort of middle of the week could be quite difficult. I suppose I've talked about, from the I Ching point of view, we've talked about the first hexagram being retreat. It's time to back off. We back off not least because we've got a full moon. The full moon can really show us the way things are. They show us the truth. And I think that 33 may link up with the full moon. When we see the truth, we realize we've got to back off because it's not going to work. And then we've got this Mercury conjunct Mars. Relationships are problematic, and Mercury conjunct Mars can be about a lot of anger, verbal anger. So we've got all of these issues, but then right at the end of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I do think whatever we're doing, there should be a big improvement because Venus moves into Sagittarius, where it's in neutral reception to Jupiter, and Jupiter's going stationary direct. So the week should end on, I think for most of us, should end on quite a good note as we move into 2024. Okay, well, thank you for listening. If you've found this video useful, then feel free to like it. If you're not subscribed, then I would be very grateful if you would subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, then there is a link in the description. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.